What is happening, Chicago Bears fans? This is T Formation Conversation. I'm your host, Lester Wiltfong, and as I have all season long, the doctor's in the house, Dr. Mason West, joining us again. They're going to help us break down some of the injuries. Mason, how you doing today?
Doing really good. You know, it's a weird sensation to be a losing football team, but having so much fun.
Three losses in a row. And, you know, we do the confidence poll on SB Nation Reacts on WCG every week. And we've been in the 90s for like 4 weeks now. Fans are excited. I think they realize something as special is happening. You know, Justin Fields has got some MVP talk by some guys in the media. He's like a top 10 quarterback according to the NFL.com QB index. It's like, what world is this where a Bears quarterback is getting talked up like this?
Well, and think about it. Like, I mean, the term most valuable player, like, to me, I always feel like it just goes to, like, you know, best quarterback on the best team.
Yeah.
But, like, truly, if you break that down, the player that is the most valuable to their team, if the records were better, you know, if this had happened sooner, yeah, you could make an argument that it'd be Justin. I mean, he literally is currently the Chicago Bears.
Can you imagine? I mean, there's a couple of games that kind of could have went either way. The Vikings game with the bad fumble. Let's say the Bears pull that out. Okay. Mm-hmm. The Dolphins game with the bad drop with St. Brown, where that would have put him in field goal range. Mm-hmm. Who knows? Let's say they would have pulled that out. And now the Bears are sitting here with 5 wins. You know, they're 5-5. Justin Fields is like one of the hottest things going right now. I think there would be some actual MVP talk. And I mean, it's still early. I mean, who knows? The Bears could go on a run here, you know, but man, again, what world are we living in when the Chicago Bears have a quarterback that is being talked up? It's just, but I do want to real quick before we get into the show, what's with Shady McCoy? Why is he always hating on Justin Fields? Is he doing this to be the ESPN troll? Is this his thing?
I think that has to be the case. I mean, like, obviously, I don't know LaShawn in depth or anything like that. And as far as I know, it's not like he has beef with Justin, but it just seems like it's trying to be contrarian, trying to get his name out there, you know, trying to make something of this fledgling career that he's starting. And it's just an easy target. You know, everyone's so excited at this point in time. It's just like, all right, let's go Oppo and try to, like, get my name out there.
Very strange. I mean, it does seem kind of personal. Like you said, it's maybe there's something going on there. Or maybe he's just trying to be that guy and just kind of, you know, be the opposite guy. And, you know, I mean, it's definitely working. I mean, people are talking about him this whole week. He's been getting mentioned. He's been getting cut up. His spot's been going on podcasts, on radio. It's all over the place. So maybe this is just his thing. He wants to be that guy. And, you know, I don't know. I think it's kind of it's like in poor taste sometimes because it just seems so personal.
Yeah.
Like, why though? I mean, what is Justin Fields doing? That's like, you know, he's taking what the defense gives him. Yeah, the passing numbers aren't the best, but you know, it's watch the games. You know, it's like anyone that says this stuff, I don't think they're really paying attention to what's happening in Chicago because it's beautiful.
Well, it's nice to see with people that do the other route, right? Because there's some people that have had the takes. You know, Chris Sims comes to mind, Ben Orlovsky come to mind, individuals who maybe ranked Justin low or, you know, even went after him a little bit. But now they're coming around and saying, you know what, I was wrong. Like, to say the statement, like, I made an assessment and he's proving my assessment to be incorrect. That does take something a little special. And I appreciate when people do that versus the other way where you just stick to it and are just pounding the table on take a bad take and continue to pound that bad take.
Yeah, I will 100% value someone's opinion if they're willing to change their mind. You know, I mean, it's like you can't just have this take on a certain guy or a certain player and, you know, he's always that guy now. I mean, we saw it with years with, you know, a lot of players in Chicago. It's, you know, there's people that love a certain kind of player or they hate a certain player. No matter what happens, they don't change their mind. It's like, dude, sometimes things change. Schemes change. Players can improve. I mean, like look at Cole Kmet. I mean, you look at Cole Kmet's game, he's still a young player. He's still coming into his own, you know, but now all of a sudden this year he's all of a sudden a pretty good player. He's been this guy for the most part. Yeah, he's improved because he's came in the league at 21. You know, he's going to get better physically, you know, mentally he's going to get better as a football player. But there are some fans just still stuck on it that he sucks. And it's like, you know, Kendall Vildor, another one comes to mind. He's had a pretty good year. He's had a decent year, so I don't know. All right, well, let's just jump into this Bears Falcons. on Sunday. And like, as we do here on TFC, we kind of go over the injury report. Before we get into that, though, can we talk about Khalil Herbert? He went
Yeah.
to injured reserve. It's that hip injury. It seemed like he may have got hurt early on a kick return, but he kind of played through it a little bit. I know you had a clip you showed on your show. What's your take? Do you think it's going to be a 4-week injury like the coaches are optimistic, or you think he may be done for the year?
So based on, I think he may have nicked it a little earlier, and then later in the game, I believe with about two something left in the fourth quarter, he definitely would have reactivated. That was the thing that knocked him out. You saw him limping off the field. It looked to me, it's either labrum or strain, but the fact that they put him on short-term IR, that knocks labrum out of it. That's not going to be in consideration. So you're looking at a hip flexor strain, more likely than not. More likely the iliopsoas versus like the rectus femoris, just based on how he presented. That's going to be a 4 to 6 week injury. Definitely could come back after 4. The question ends up becoming not as much can he come back, but more does it make sense to have him come back, right? Like, let's say the Bears lose a couple more games here. He's definitely going to be a part of your future. David Montgomery is a question mark, just depending on, maybe what that contract looks like. Do you try to go somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera? So, it's like, hey, yeah, like, Khalil, dang it, looks like that's going to take a little longer to heal than we thought it did. You're out for the rest of the season. That's more going to ultimately be what it looks like versus, actually can, because he absolutely can. Like I said, 4 to 6 week injury.
And it's funny, some fans still don't understand what Herbert is bringing to the table. He's bringing 6 yards a carry. He may not be the overall football player as Montgomery, but he's a hell of a running back, and the Bears definitely need him. He's definitely part of the future here. So, I hope he's fine. I mean, there's no surgery on the table, it seems like. I mean, it seems like the Bears are optimistic he can make it back. So the fact that it's not happening, if he goes a little past 4 and they do decide to shut him down, I think that's the best thing if that's what it takes. But again, if he can come back, though, because right now it's pretty much Demo and Ebner. They're going to probably bring up Evans from the practice squad. I know they've called him up once this year. I think they're allowed to call him up 3 times before having to go back through waivers. The COVID rules have kind of changed things. I'm not sure how that goes now, but they're not going to roll into the game with just 2 guys. It'll bring someone else up and see what happens. Evans may be a little better as a pass blocker, maybe a little better guy than to bring in Tresson Ebner, the rookie. But regardless, the Bears overall, though, besides obviously the Herbert IR, they're fairly healthy. We got the injury report pulled up here on Second Seat Gridiron for those guys watching us. N'Keal Harry, whiteout illness. He is listed as out. He was inactive last week, which is kind of a surprising thing. So him being out's not that big of a hit for the offense, but he's sick. He's got an illness. Whatever it is, it's serious enough where they already ruled him out. In NFL, you can't go from out to in. Once you're out, you're out. If they thought he had a chance to play, they would have had him. That's doubtful. So Harry's out. But real quick, what's your thought about N'Keal Harry being inactive last week?
Man, I found that to be very surprising. And some of the people I talked to, even it was right before the game, and an hour or 2 before those inactives came out, and they're like, yeah, here are the people that I expect to be active at wide receiver, and they're pretty close to the situation. And they had N'Keal Harry listed. They were taken a bit by surprise as well. It's odd just because you think this is one of those years that you are trying to see what you have in guys. Does he become a little maybe redundant with, a Chase Claypool or, with an Equanimeous St. Brown, depending on how you view those roles? Like, yeah, he absolutely does. But, and then you also had Tevin out, I think, and that was part of it because, now you needed, I think, maybe an extra lineman involved. Because it's not like they carried 6 receivers. They only carried 5. They didn't bring someone else. It's odd. And then even with N'Keal Harry being ruled out this early, being out with an illness, that leads me to believe one of 2 things. Either A, maybe it's COVID related, which, I don't know what he has, so don't take that for anything obvious. But when it's this early, you don't have to report COVID stuff anymore with your teams. A lot of teams aren't even testing anymore. And so take that in consideration. And then B, the other thing is, well, we were going to rule him out anyway. He was going to be inactive anyway, so we might as well just say he's out with an illness. I think it's one of those 2 things, because if it was like a cold, a flu, whatever, you're probably going to wait all the way up until game time before you're going to rule that person out.
That's a good point. You talk about the COVID. I mean, we're so used to the last couple of years. That was always a big thing. That's one of the reasons why they increased the practice squad. They let you bring guys back and forth a little easier now. But yeah, they don't. NFL doesn't mandate, reporting that. So it's. I guess that's a good thing. I guess it's not that it's not affecting us so much. That's a good thing. Let's move on. Dane Cruikshank, safety, hamstring is out. He practiced in the week. He was limited. He was out, then he was limited, then he was out again. It's like, did he? I'm guessing may have re-aggravated something because he missed last week. Is that your guess?
Yeah, and this is the second time now he's had a hamstring thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know which side it is, left versus right, or anything like that. But when you see someone that has had hamstring previously, in previous weeks, you see, like you talked about, going from limited to not participating and then to limited. I mean, that's usually a re-aggravation. And now they're just like, all right, let's shut it down for the week. We don't, and that's the thing. He's done special team snaps. He's never even played on defense. You don't need him out there. You don't want it to get any worse.
I thought I was pretty high on the signing when they got him. I thought he was a nice depth piece. I'm glad, of course, they drafted Brisker in the draft. You got to get a more talent in there, but I think he's a nice piece there. But him and DeAndre Houston Carson, they're both basically special teamers. They kind of fill the same role. It's good to have an extra guy there that's really good. So, when he's healthy, he'll be back. Just right now, though, it just makes sense to shut him down. And then the other 3 Bears that are on the injury report this week, they're all questionable. But the good thing about them, they all practiced in full on Friday, and that's Tevin Jenkins with that hip, Al-Qadim Muhammad with that knee, Kindle Vilder with that ankle. But like I said, all 3 practiced in full. They're all going to play, right?
I always say keep in mind that the Friday practices are much lighter. So being full there is not always like a guarantee. My understanding is that Kindle Vilder will be playing. I'm not sure on Al-Qadim Muhammad. I would think he's going to play, but even that one is not a certainty. The one that's really interesting to me is Tevin. Tevin came out and said that, this is a maintenance thing. It was a hip issue that was there before the season really even began. And they just decided, hey, we're going to try to work on this now. Maintenance is not sitting out a week. That's not maintenance. That's you got a problem. And whenever I look at someone that has hip or back, it's very chicken or the egg in nature. A lot of time people with hip problems end up having compensation in the back, and then you have back problems. And sometimes it's the other way. So it is concerning to me that he's having this and that he needed an entire week to be out. And then he, didn't practice pretty much all week until today, which is like a glorified walkthrough, really, for the most part. I'm not locking it in that he's playing. It is really going to be a game time decision for him.
So like we talked about last week, there was no play that we noticed where he got hurt. So something could have happened, maybe in practice or whatever. So, and you mentioned the back and hip go hand in hand. And here's a guy that has had back surgery. He missed, most of his rookie season because of that. And like you said, if he's overcompensating for another injury, I mean, he may be healthy, as NFL healthy, he's finally good to go, but maybe his gates change because he's trying to compensate for something. So, then they need him out there though. I mean, it'd be nice. I think if there's anything lingering, I think like we talked about Herbert shutting him down, anything lingering with Jenkins, it might just be best to shut him down for a couple of games too.
Well, and that's something that really bugged me when Tevin first got the surgery, and there was the statement put out there by the Bears front office and even Tevin himself, where it's like, all right, the surgery fixed it, and it's like, well, yes, it may have decreased the pressure that was on the nerve that was giving him the problems down the leg, but there is a reason why there was pressure being put on the nerve in the first place. There's something that occurred or was occurring, whether it was like one large trauma impact or more over time. And my understanding is it was an overtime thing for him because he had some back stuff, obviously, going back into the draft and into college. And so more likely than not, probably something like this, underlying hip issue, like if you're lacking, let's say, internal rotation of the hip, and you now need to be trying to open up and turn and pull, now all of a sudden you're going to compensate into the lumbar spine. Because now you have to turn and rotate more through the lumbar spine to compensate for that hip. And so even, yes, the surgery got rid of the compression, but that didn't take care of the thing that caused the problem in the back in the first place. Now, I'm not saying that this is for sure correlated, but, it would be odd if there wasn't something to do with it. But I think you're absolutely right. I mean, if I was in that training room and I saw that, there was anything questionable going on here, I'm shutting him down. He looked way too good this year at guard. I want him fully rehabbed, fully recovered going into next year, which actually matters because he looked great at guard at times, and he just really needs to be able to tie that together and not have to worry about health holding him back.
Before we jump over to the Falcons, there's a question in the chat from Anthony Wichter. He's asking about playing on turf versus playing on grass. I know there was some stuff in the news this last week about, turf versus grass. From your expert opinion, what do you think the difference is playing on turf, playing on grass?
Turf and grass is a pretty substantial difference. One of them being turf just isn't as forgiving, right? There is that firmness to it, even if you have some of the different layers that are going on, and that's one of the reasons why you do see an increase in injuries with turf, just because the cleats kind of get stuck a little bit more. Now all of a sudden you're putting a lot more pressure on the knee, on the hip, on the back, things of that nature. So specifically for Tevin, yeah, I mean that would make a difference, and that's also one of the reasons why players play faster on turf versus on grass. It's more similar to running on some of those rubberized tracks like you would, or maybe even like, I'm not as aggressive as this, but like even on concrete, you just don't have as much of that cushion that grass is going to give, and so that whole foot complex can get stuck, can get caught, and transfer force in a bad way up the chain.
Yeah, that's I will say from someone who old enough to play it on the old school AstroTurf way back in the day, the turf they have these days, the technology, everything about it is like so much better than what it used to be. But like you said, it's still not natural. It's still, there's not quite as much give there, and it's we see guys get stuck on it. So uh, with indoor stadium, I know some teams do it. They have a grass inside. If the NFL ever mandates, all grass, I think that might be a nice thing, but I just can't see it happening. These teams want to have the multi-purpose, and having the grass kind of defeats that purpose.
One of the things that's interesting, I know overseas, a lot of the soccer stadiums actually have kind of a hybrid. They have this turf base as the most of it, and then they do have some natural grass growing between it. Now, I don't really know, like I haven't looked super into it in terms of injury and then what that's going to be like, but I would think that it could give you a little bit more give than if you just went one way, and it's a lot more manageable because you have like a good amount of turf already being there. So if you do, pull up grass and all that, it's not going to look like Soldier Field after MLS Chicago Fire plays on it, and all of a sudden or a concert, and then you have a football game 2 days later and it looks terrible. So I would that would be something I'd be more interested in looking into. Well, what is that hybrid going to potentially do?
Now I have homework to do. I'm gonna have to look that up because that's interesting to me. When I was in college, I did this is again years ago. I did one of my reports was on AstroTurf and the turf, the differences in the injuries and stuff like that. And it was funny because I always talked about the NFL, like in my speech class. And my teacher got to one day and said, "Hey, no more talking about the NFL." Okay. So I did the next report on AstroTurf. Technically, it wasn't the NFL; it was AstroTurf. So the teacher kind of, it's like, "All right, you get a pass, but no more sports next week," which is okay. So, but let's go out into the Atlanta Falcons. AJ Terrell, cornerback hamstring questionable. Eric Harris, safety foot questionable. Felipe Franks, tight end calf is out. And of those three, Harris and Franks, they're both backups. Franks is kind of a gimmicky guy once in a while as a tight end, played quarterback in college. He's out, doesn't matter. Eric Harris is more a special teamer, a veteran. But of these guys, AJ Terrell is questionable with a hamstring, but the Falcons tweeted out earlier today that he's back. I don't think they make a big deal, put a big clip of a video of him coming out to practice if he's not going to play in the game. He hasn't played since week 7, but he's a pretty good football player. So the fact that he's back and that their defense is relatively healthy, it's going to be a good test for the Chicago Bears offense here, which has been racking up the rushing yards, and the Falcons are number 2 in rushing. So this could be a very quick game in the turf there, just a pounded out, smash mouth kind of, two teams wanting to run the ball. Is that kind of what you're expecting in this game?
I would think so. I would imagine, though, that the Bears specifically are going to try to open things up a little bit. The Falcons do not have a great pass defense going on. I mean, AJ Terrell's fantastic. He really is. But like he said, he's been out for a little while. Anyone coming back after that's going to be a little slower coming back. Potentially look at, is he favoring that hamstring at all? Is there going to be a re-aggravation? So keep that in mind. But I would think, yes, the Bears are going to continue to lean on the run like they have, but still try to open things up. Yes, the passing attempts continue to be down compared to maybe where you want Fields to be in terms of his growth, but a lot of that ends up being decisions made on the field, whether it's because he has to scramble, whether it's because he ends up pulling it, if it's an RSO that runs screen option. So it's not like that pass plays aren't being called. It's not necessarily being thrown all the time. Falcons for sure, though. I mean, they are a run first team, run second team to set up the deep ball. The problem is Marcus Mariota is not very good at the deep ball. And as a Kyle Pitts fantasy owner, it's very frustrating.
What are they doing with Kyle Pitts? How do they have such a fantastic talent and he's just not getting targets? What's going on with the Falcons? Very strange, right?
And I think Brett Coleman did a fantastic video on this. So if you're looking to just understand a little bit of how this Falcons offense operates, go watch that. It's really good, and he dives into it, and basically it breaks it down into it's the way Arthur Smith calls it. He hasn't blocking a lot, and it's why he's basically, that makes no sense. B, a little bit of it is Marcus Mariota and his deficiencies, and then C, it's a little bit of Kyle Pitts in terms of how he runs his routes and how he's getting open or lack thereof. So, but they're definitely mismanaging a fantastic talent, and I do wonder to an extent if they regret taking a tight end as early as they did and maybe not looking at quarterback, aka Justin Fields' homegrown talent.
You mentioned that. I mean, he's from 40 minutes north of Atlanta. He grew up a Falcons fan. It was it could have been a no-brainer, take him. And, speaking of that, I'm sure there'll be a lot of Justin Fields fans in the stadium. Bears always travel well. Atlanta doesn't really sell out very much in that stadium. So we could have a pretty vocal Bears contingent in Atlanta cheering on the Bears. And, that's good. It might give them a little extra boost. And, speaking again about the offense real quick we want to see more passing. It's more exciting, but they're leading the league in rushing. They're putting up 30 points a game, taking what the defense gives them. I mean, if they pass run, I really don't care, to be honest with you, as long as they're putting up 30 points. I'd like to see a dub once in a while. I think they have a chance to win this game. I think it's right there for them. So are you taking the Bears? Are you taking the Falcons?
And this one, I'm taking the Bears. At this point, no, over the last 4 weeks, going to now the 5th week, no one is being able to stop this offense. The Falcons do not have a good run defense. I think
that's a great sentence right there. No one is going to stop the Bears offense.
I know. I didn't think I'd be saying that.
I've never heard that said out loud since the 80s.
And they have a terrible run defense. I think they're ranked 26th in defensive DVOA against the rush. Bears are 25th, so it's not like it's that much better. But I would expect that to continue. So that I think the Bears are going to score again, probably around 30-ish. And I just don't trust Marcus Mariota and the offense to be able to score 30-ish. So I'm taking the Bears. Plus, they're getting 3 points.
Yeah, I took the Bears and on the money line as well. So I think the Bears got a good chance, and I went the over because the Bears have just been racking up the points here. So it should be fun. Win or lose, it should be fun. It should be another nice game from Fields. The run game should be going good. So let's just have another fun game. That's all I'm hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. Just lead us into Thanksgiving with something that's interesting to talk about and fun.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, are you going to take off bare bones next week? Usually you record on Thursday at 5. You can take a week there.
Look, I love y'all. I love the WCG fan family, but I don't think I'm going to be in a state to be able to do a 5 o'clock show. Maybe I'll sneak in a little something on a Wednesday morning or something like that. But yeah, Thursday there will not be a show.
So Friday, if you're around, we'll try and kind of hook up our schedule. But Friday, I'm off Friday. I don't work at the real job. So I'm around most of the day Friday. So once the Bears injury report drops, and once who the hell do they play next week? The Jets. So once the Bears and Jets both drop the report, I'll pretty much be ready to go. So if you're around Friday, holler at me. We'll come back with a T-formation conversation. Otherwise, man, there'll be stuff all over the podcast channel like there always is. Bear with me, Bears banter, Bear and Balanced, Bears over beers, a lot of Bears puns in there. So even though we're missing the bare bones, there's plenty of Bear puns to go around. So any final thoughts about the Falcons game?
I'm still hoping I see, Justin Fields walks in wearing a Michael Vick jersey. That's my hope is the first pregame outfit.
That would be nice. There would be some Bears fans not happy about that. But I just think it'd be ice cold.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. All right. So That's it. That's our time. It's T Formation Conversation. Make sure you guys all follow Mason at West Sports PT. Also, if you're in the Barrington area, go see him. You know, he's a Dr. West, for crying out loud. You know, go see him. Follow me on Twitter at Wiltfong Jr. As long as Twitter's still around, we'll both be there. But until next time, bear down, my friends.